Hello and welcome to part 3 or episode 3 of this simple game experiment. I'm going to start off here by kind of setting up the camera how I want it because I scaled it down in the last episode. But I kind of want it to rotate kind of like that, up and down and side to side. And rearranging my hierarchy and adding a script. So this episode's all about scripting, and I'm going to be using C#. The first thing I want to set up is the input. So this is get axis horizontal first. I'm just doing that first. And I had to check the manual here. So it's input.getAxis horizontal. What that'll do is output a -1 through 0 to +1 number when you hit the arrow keys on the horizontal axis. Next, I'm using the function rotate because I'm hoping to rotate the camera, and I'm also setting up a private transform variable named parent. But I don't think I end up using this, so you can skip that part. There it looks like I'm setting up the rotate function around a vector and setting the space to world, adding time in, and then creating a new variable called speed or a float, and then I'm timesing time by that. So I've got some errors, and it looks like it's because I didn't put transform in front of rotate. But I actually do a lot of this messing around just to find that I just needed to have a lowercase transform instead of uppercase. So kind of add it all back in. So now my code should read vector3.up times time times the input, which is the arrow keys, times a speed variable. And something went wrong, but I think it's just because I didn't actually put a value in. And here you see what that script does. It moved the camera in the wrong rotation, so here I'm figuring out the local rotations and setting the vector3 to the correct one, so now it'll rotate around the z-axis of the camera. I decided to experiment with different field of views for this camera to try and see if I could get rid of some of that clipping that you're seeing of the computer monitor mesh. Just moving the camera around to keep, to minimize that clipping as much as possible. And so I found a pretty good number, 45 view angle. It's kind of tight, but I kind of liked it for the webcam look. And so now I can rotate all the way around, even though I really do need to put limits on that, or a way of clamping that in. So now I'm going to be working on the other axis. So this one I just need to change what axis it rotates around and what keys used to control it. So I use vertical for the up and down arrow keys. But there was a weird thing going on where if I rotated up and to the left, it got all slanted, and not just up and to the left, that was just my example. So I thought maybe setting the space to a different space would fix that, but it still had the same problem. Actually, it inverted my keys. Putting in the correct vectors quickly fixes that, though. But even after I did that, you could rotate just fine, but then once you start rotating both directions, it goes all wonky and crazy. This is actually a really big tangent I went on to try and use raycasting to control an empty to control the camera, what the camera's looking at. Raycasting from the mouse position. So I was researching like screen point to mouse and all this stuff and setting up rays and trying to get the empty to follow, and the result was pretty bad, and it just took a lot of time and I didn't get anywhere. So this is what it looked like. It was just all crazy, jittering everywhere around, and it was not what I wanted at all. So I kept messing with it and tried some other things with like the look at function, but I ended up just deleting everything and going back to what I had. And in doing some research, I thought maybe if I changed the world to just one of the axes, that it would actually fix my problem. And here you can see it actually did fix it a little bit, except for need to change what vector I'm rotating around. And so here is actually the fixed thing. If I only have the world space set to the z-axis, aka the left and right arrow keys, it actually works just fine. So I've got it working, I guess. I think that we need to start working on the clamping mechanism. So I'll make an X and Y minimum and maximum value because I'm going to be using the same number for the minimum and maximum. So I only really need one number for each axis to define the minimum and maximum. But this system that I'm coding right now didn't really work at all, so I did a little bit more work off camera to try and fix this system and a few other things. I fixed up the light maps. As you can see, some of the weird splotches that were here are gone, and the one that was in the hallway, I don't know if you paid attention to those, but I got rid of them. And I worked on just, getting the light how I wanted it. But I didn't do much else besides that. And well, except for I fixed the camera. So here, let me show that to you. I got it to do what I want, I think. So it'll go up, and it'll go down, and it'll go all around using the arrow keys, just like we want. But something else I implemented is limits. So I can't go any further than this, and I don't really like how that works. They're going to show you the script control. I've just got a min-max value here and the speed value. I don't really like how jerky it is, and it's also in a circle. So if I try to go up, it does some weird things, and then when I come back down, my camera could be cockeyed. But I don't really know how to fix that. So this is the best system I've found so far. For setting up limits on my camera, which it's not very good. So I'll show you the code I wrote for that. I made a variable I called start rot, and that just takes in the starting rotation, so that wherever I put the camera, the minimum and maximum is 80 degrees away from the center, basically. In all directions. And then I used that to in this if statement here, saying if quaternion angle is just a function that finds the angle between two rotations. So I said if the angle is if the angle of the current rotation is less than my minimum and maximum, then go ahead and keep rotating. So this is just the code that we wrote in the last thing, the transform.rotate with the inputs and all that. And then I just said otherwise, this is the stopping mechanism, because it sounds great with just this. So if we took all of this out, it sounds great, but what ends up happening here, I actually can delete that, save it. And what happens is, without the else statement, it just goes, and that looks perfect, except for now it's stuck. I'm hitting all the arrow keys, and nothing's happening because it's outside of that min-max, and so I can't actually do anything. So that's what that does. So it says else the rotation, just set the rotation equal to. This is kind of like look at, but kind of put it back, set it back to the start rotation over time, is what it does. But basically what it ends up doing is just putting it back into that range. So that else only runs when we're in that little area right outside. It's basically this. It's trying to rotate back, but I'm rotating back in, and that's what all that jerking is. But then if I stop holding down the key, it stops jerking, and it kind of like slowly rotates me back into range where the else isn't true anymore. And so if you're being light on the keys, you don't get too much of that jerking, but I don't really like how that's implemented. This is kind of the best solution I've come up with so far. I do have a few ideas for some different ones, and if you have any, be sure to send them over to me, because I'd really like to know how to do this. So that's basically all I did, is change the camera and the light map. I think that's probably all the time we have in this episode. See you in the next one. I'm putting the finished code in the description just for you guys.